Ooh, my beer.
We recommend he be remanded into custody at the conclusion of this hearing. Basically, arrest him at the end of this hearing. That ain't good. As soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, no.
You know, when Todd Peterson told him that he was going to be arrested at the end of the hearing, that he basically shit that maroon suit. Like,
He was just like, I just told everybody how difficult it is to go to jail in Minnesota. This can't be happening. To raise his bail to $100,000 unconditional, $50,000 conditional, and take him into custody immediately. That he's shown a record of ongoing reckless behavior throughout his entire release, like from the beginning. So this isn't something that popped up. For people who want to know, was this a specific thing that popped up that caused this? No. She said he's shown throughout his entire release, throughout the whole case.
even prior to conditions being set.
Complete reckless ongoing behavior. And he's had numerous police reports. I imagine this is every time he had a violation that Kayla was made aware of. She was told to make police reports.
Yes. So she and I together, I did not want to make police reports. I wanted to talk to the person who did the probation stuff, but we didn't get
That's not how it works.
We didn't get that person's information until last week. Or no, 2 weeks ago, I believe.
So
we've made
she said
three.
he has
We made 3 police reports.
So he's been reported to the police for these violations 3 times. This is just, they want a record of it. They want it on paper for the judge that this has occurred. Also, this gets rid of spurious reports, I guess, through a non-official source. When you file a police report, it's a crime to lie to the police.
Right. And the officers investigate your report and then they pass it on to the
court,
to the attorney.
Got it. She mentioned the numerous emails she gets on a daily basis, and documents and recordings with timestamps. Again, she mentioned numerous violations. She said he has violated the court orders countless amounts. And every time he's crossing the line of what the court has ordered, and it's very clear that he is not taking it serious. Those are the words she used.
There's one more specific line that I think matters. She said there are more than enough violations to cross what we consider harassment under the law. She's very specific. Like, this has gone. This isn't a one-time thing. There are tons of things that they have determined to be violations.
At that point, the judge handed it over to Todd Peterson. This was.
Can I say something right before you describe Todd Peterson's speech?
Yes.
I used to think that Todd Peterson was competent and that Aaron was retarded and just didn't understand what his attorney was telling him. And so he was coming out and spinning. After the letter that he sent earlier this week or last week or whatever, and then his performance in court today, I was just like, nope. He hired the most idiotic defense attorney I've ever encountered. And that includes me.
Again, the prosecutor just listed off all these things. Again, the notes I have are ongoing behavior throughout the entire case, from beginning to end, numerous police reports, emails, documents, and recordings, social media posts, numerous violations, countless amounts, crossing the line, and he's definitely not taking it seriously. This gets handed over to Todd Peterson. I shit you not. This man goes, Your Honor, my client is a homeowner. Why not say his credit score, you fucking retard? Like, what are we doing at this point? This is what you have to say for him? My client is a homeowner. He graduated from Brown College. I'm looking around like seeing if he about to run out of a tunnel at a football game. I don't know what's going on. He's the owner of Steel Toe Media Inc.,
Which isn't true.
It doesn't even matter. Don't bring that up. That's what's causing all the problems. I would shut my fucking face about that. Like that's what's caused all these issues. He's never had a felony. Now, what's interesting about that is he's had numerous misdemeanor charges for harassing women, and now he's in trouble in front of the court for not obeying court orders during a case about harassing women where he violated it by continuing to harass said woman. But he doesn't have any felonies, you guys. He said these words, which is fucking insane. I have advised Aaron throughout this case not to discuss the case or mention the defendant, and it's clear that he understands that. Again, this is after the prosecutor just said all this stuff about how flagrant he's been in disregarding court orders. I've advised Aaron on multiple occasions not to talk about this case or the defendant, and it's clear that he understands that. Now, either Todd Peterson, like you said, is fucking retarded, or this is a flat rate lawyer that has his head in the sand and doesn't give a fuck about Aaron and isn't paying attention. Aaron's lying to him and says, I never talk about it. I never talk about her.
Yeah.
And he believes him.
And so I think it's a bit of both and I'll get into why when you're done laying it out, because I have some thoughts that are really on how he acted in the courtroom, and they're really big clues as to what's going on kind of behind the scenes.
Even if you had this whole speech prepared, after the prosecutor lays all that out, wouldn't you call an audible and not say that?
Well, you just
he doesn't understand it. The prosecutor just told you he doesn't understand it, and he's not taking it seriously, and he keeps crossing lines countless amounts of times, numerous violations.
He didn't once say my client didn't do it. Like, that's insane. My client did not violate the release conditions. These allegations are incorrect and out of context.
You know, in the chamber, they went over all the list of violations, and she just said, "I don't need to watch all this."
I do know that.
So holy shit. At that point, that's all he had to say. My client owns a home. He graduated from Brown College, 2-year degree. He has no felonies, and he's the owner of Steel Toe Inc.
Oh, and he has 3 kids.
He's been advised not to talk about it, and he clearly understands that. That's it. The defense rests. The judge then said the first words out of her mouth, and actually the first words out of her mouth before this whole thing started, was another lengthy spiel about we better not record. So we got warned 2 times, both by the officer in the court and by the judge. Aaron is really concerned about people recording this case. The first words out of the judge's mouth, Mr. Imholte, I am not amused. She accused him of continuously harassing the victim and said, I have seen the several violations about this. I've given you a no contact order, and I can't even read my own fucking handwriting.
She went over the order again, and she said, you are not to have any contact, direct or indirect. You are not to mention directly or indirectly on, and then she listed off a bunch of stuff: social media, any broadcast, any production.
Anything you can think of that she could see that you talk about her.
Don't.
Privately, publicly, if she could see it, you better not do it.
Yeah.
Todd Peterson, one other thing he asked for is, instead of raising his bond, in lieu of raising his bond, could we come up with some sort of cash settlement? Is there honor? Here's my license with 100 tucked under. Is there anything we can do here? What she did was say, yeah, the cash is the same amount a bond would cost. Yeah, he can give the court, he can just turn over $5,000 to the court, or he can go get a bond for $5,000.
Might have saved himself $500.
Maybe,
because 10% bond fee.
Okay.
Yeah, so he probably saved himself $500. Good job.
She basically then said, "Mr. Peterson, would you like to go ahead with sentencing today?" This plea deal is done. This plea deal is fucked.
Yeah.
This woman was about to send this man to jail. If that lawyer was so stupid that he had answered the question, yeah, let's go ahead and just do sentencing today, Aaron was going to jail. I have a feeling she's not going to accept any plea that does not have jail time in it.
And you know who else has that feeling? Todd Peterson.
Yes. I have a feeling a lot of the people involved in the case know that. I can't say that I know that. I have a feeling this judge is not going to accept any plea that doesn't include jail time. Just call it a hunch back. Aaron was then rescheduled for another hearing, for a sentencing hearing on October 2nd at 11 a.m. because Scott Peterson demands a transcript of the plea hearing. Why would Scott want a transcript of that plea hearing?
So this is the big...
This plea's going to be dead in the water. This plea's not going to matter. Why does he need that transcript of a plea hearing?
So his exact words were, we want to pull a transcript of the plea hearing to consider our options. So you only have really two options once you've entered a plea agreement for guilt, and that is to proceed with the plea agreement or you withdraw the plea agreement.
Right.
And that's the only two options you have as a defendant.
But why would he be so interested in what was said at the plea hearing?
This is the key. The plea agreement itself cannot be used as evidence of someone's guilt.
So he was going to plead guilty,
right?
And
he
do
did.
this.
He did plead guilty,
but if this plea agreement is withdrawn, they cannot use him pleading guilty for that plea agreement.
Right? They can't say you pled guilty with this thing and you withdrew the plea agreement, so you're guilty. They can't do that. But everything you say about the plea agreement in court and out of court is admissible.
So if he were to go on his show after he signed this plea agreement and admit that he did do it, say that he did it to be malicious, say that he did it to bully Kayla, say that all these things, which he did several times.
His exact words
as late as last week. Now he has so again, before the plea agreement, he never said I did it. He never said I did it. The minute he signed that plea agreement and thought he was safe and thought this was all done, he couldn't stop saying how he did it. He was ashamed of it. He's sorry he did it, but he was malicious. He was bullying a woman, and all that can now be entered into evidence. And should they need to come up with a new plea agreement now, the prosecution may not even be interested. The felony may be back on the table because now he's admitted it, and the component that made it a felony versus the misdemeanor was the intention. And now that he has publicly stated, my intention was to bully and harass her, the plea deal might be off the table. They might go back now for the felony.
So there's one more thing. The plea deal itself can't be used. You just talked about out-of-court statements. But in Minnesota, to enter a plea of guilty, you have to stand before the court and on the record, under oath, provide a factual basis for every element of the crime. You have to give the court enough information for it to determine that you're guilty. You can't take a guilty plea and say you're not guilty. Like, oh, I'm just taking the guilty plea because it's a better deal. If you do that and the court finds out, they will withdraw your guilty plea and they'll say, no, you're going to trial. We, as the court, cannot convict a not guilty person. So if you believe you're not guilty, we can't do it. So you have to lay a factual basis. So at Aaron's plea agreement, he had to say, I sent this picture. I knew that she did not, that she had an expectation of privacy in this picture and that she did not consent to it being sent. He has to go through and lay that out, like what was going on in his head. All those statements are now admissible should the plea be withdrawn. And that's huge because these are statements made under oath. He can't say I was fucking around with my audience. I was just being a braggart or a blowhard. These are made in court. So he's either commit perjury or they're true. So now they can just go and say, you said this at this hearing, didn't you? In front of a jury. And they'll all hear him say, yes, I sent the picture. No, she didn't know about it. No, she didn't consent to it. Like, he'll have those statements are all in. And there's no way to go, oh, these are hearsay or anything else.
You couldn't have taken the fifth on that?
No, you cannot. Well, the way he could have, there are two types of pleas. There's an Outford plea and a Norgard plea. And I kind of trolled him on Twitter a little bit about this because he said Todd Peterson was the best person ever. I was just thinking for the civil suit. But an Outford plea says, I don't admit to these facts, but I admit that the state will probably win. And that is a plea that the judge can allow, but you have to ask to use it. And a Norgard plea is similar. It's, I don't remember these facts or something, impedes my ability to know about them, but I admit that the state has an appropriate case against me. Either of those pleas you want to take in a case like this, if you can, because they say, look, I don't believe that I did this. Like, I don't believe you can prove that I had the intent, but the state might win in front of a jury, so I'm taking the plea deal. And if he had done that, there wouldn't be a record of him saying, I did all this stuff. So good lawyering, Todd Peterson, not doing those things.
Hit the follow button, hit the like button. Okay, Doom, you're gone again. That's it. I'm so sick of you anyway.
Let's go.
Doom knows, and everybody else knows.
Doom knows. Doom's a clipper.
You're gonna go give Doom the opportunity to make a fucking internet platform to build his fucking business off the money he made from selling rotten tennis shoes? All of these people named Doom are the migrants that walked across the border. I literally asked you today to make my content go viral. Did you make my content go viral?